All right, moving on. A shocking incident has come to light in the Czech Republic where civilian and military intelligence have revealed the details of a stunning plot by the Chinese embassy to intimidate the vice president of Taiwan during her visit to the country in March 2024. According to reports, a Chinese military attaché in fact tailed the vice president's motorcade with the intention of crashing into her car. The incident is now being called a serious violation of the Vienna Convention by the Czech Republic, where police thwarted this plan only because the Chinese diplomat following the vice president's motorcade ran a red light in central Prague. Joining us today is Jakub Janda, director of the European Values Center for Policy in Prague. Thank you. I appreciate you joining us. Do you have credible information of the involvement of senior diplomats or even the Chinese government in this bizarre matter?
If you mean in the March 2024 incident in Prague, right? Yes. So Czech government and specifically the director of the Czech Military Intelligence Agency spoke to Czech media, to Czech public radio, and confirmed that in March 2024, when then Vice President-elect of Taiwan, Kim Xiao, when she was visiting Prague, that her car was being followed by the car of the Chinese embassy in Prague, which was driven by the assistant military attaché of China, of the Chinese government in Prague. And that was confirmed publicly. And the new details which emerged, confirmed by the director of Czech Military Intelligence Agency, was that the Chinese government and specifically the civilian intelligence agency of China actually considered to take what they called demonstrative kinetic action, which would basically in their case mean they plan to crash a car of the Chinese embassy, of the military diplomat of China, into the car of the Taiwanese vice president-elect. This was intercepted by the Czech Military Intelligence Agency, apparently, which was confirmed publicly. And then the incident was prevented because Czech police was providing protection for the visitor, for the Taiwanese vice president-elect in Prague. And because it was so what happened in reality was in March 2024, the Taiwanese vice president-elect arrived to Prague, to the Prague airport. Then she was driven by a motorcade, by a set of cars through the Prague streets, and the Chinese embassy car was following her. And the Chinese embassy car was actually driving through a red light at a crossroads, at an intersection inside the city of Prague. And the Chinese embassy car was actually intercepted by the Czech police protection detail, and the Chinese diplomat was identified, and that was the case in this time.
Well, also, was there a serious threat to the life of the Taiwanese vice president? Is that something that you can verify?
Likely not threat to life. It sounds from the public information now, we know that the original plan of the Chinese intelligence agency, Chinese government, was to crash into a car of the Taiwanese vice president-elect, just basically to scare her, to intimidate her. So my understanding is that there was no plan to physically harm her, the Taiwanese vice president-elect, but basically to scare her with. But such a physical incident would be very significant. Clearly, the Chinese government in this case have broken the Vienna Convention on diplomatic activities. So clearly there was a major breach, even the Chinese diplomat in the car basically tried to run through the red light and was very much intimidating on a road, basically. But there was no physical harm to the person at this moment.
Well, how has the Czech government reacted to this incident, or this great interference, if we can call it that?
So what happened was that the Czech Foreign Ministry actually gave an official protest to the Chinese ambassador in Prague. To my understanding, there was no expelling of Chinese diplomats from Prague. No persona non grata was used, which I think is a mistake. I believe there should be more kind of deterrence and punishment from the side of Czech government in this diplomatic matter. But my understanding is that only an official protest was raised by the Czech government towards the Chinese ambassador. So at least this was happening, I must.
And how do you see this incident playing out in international forums? Is it likely to kick up a storm?
Well, we have seen Chinese diplomats in Europe becoming quite aggressive, sometimes verbally, such as what we call the wolf warrior diplomacy, which is basically angry shouting Chinese ambassador across European capitals. But sometimes there were cases where, for example, Chinese diplomats were organizing public protests in Europe. It happened in Lithuania a few years ago, and the result was that Chinese diplomats were expelled from Lithuania after such a breach of Vienna Convention, basically interfering in domestic internal affairs of Lithuania in this case. So that was the case, and I believe this is basically yet another indication of the pressure campaign or intimidation campaign by the Chinese government, which we can now see in European countries. There has been a lot of political blackmail by Chinese government, where effectively you would have Chinese embassy, for example, in Prague, threatening the Czech government to stop inviting Taiwanese officials, for example, or stop taking defensive actions in cybersecurity domain, for example. So that has been happening, but that's more like political pressure. In this case, it clearly became almost physical.
Well, and despite China's threats and relationship between Taiwan and Czech Republic have only improved, is this an attitude that transcends local politics?
So clearly, the Czech Republic has a very specific and quite unique relationship with Taiwan, which goes over the terms of individual governments in the Czech case. There has been massive support for Taiwan among Czech population as well. We have public data showing Taiwan is very much liked by the Czech population, much more than China is. Taiwan also provides approximately 5 times more jobs in the Czech Republic than China, which is quite rare. Usually it's the other way around, given the size of these countries. But in the context of Czech Republic, Taiwan is quite a big investor. That's where there's also a lot of national security cooperation. For example, there is publicly known cooperation between Czech and Taiwanese police agencies, cyber agencies, or national defense universities. That's something what is quite rare. Most other European countries don't do that. And also there's public information about Czech Republic selling weapons to Taiwan, which is something what most European countries don't dare to do because they're afraid of Chinese economic retaliation. So those are things which are happening. And that's where we could expect that Czech Republic will continue to actually have very close ties with Taiwan, and not just politically and culturally, but also, as you see, in basically the national defense area.
And what does the incident say about China's attitude towards foreign countries and their sovereignty?
I think it shows that the Chinese government is willing to threaten Taiwan and kind of intimidate Taiwan and anybody who is associated with Taiwan, such as in this case, Czech state, which has been welcoming or inviting and welcoming, hosting Taiwanese government officials. So there's the effort to silence Taiwan, to erase it from the international map. I would expect the same thing to continue in the future because Chinese government tries to have basically 2 faces. One is pretending to be nice and pretending to be friendly, while at the same time acting as a very hostile totalitarian state. We see it in trade relations between Europe and China. And we see also in these political relations where there's a lot of nice phrases, which then when it comes to reality, there is a very hard hostile pressure by the Chinese government from direct espionage on the European territory, which we have seen, direct cyber intrusions, which are quite serious from the Chinese state, through direct economic or trade pressure.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.